I don't know that anybody is out here claiming Basic Instinct with all its ice picks to the brain and vulvas to the audience's eyeballs is some paragon of tasteful, thoughtful filmmaking, but it's definitely trying to say, or at least do something, and that something gets a lot more interesting with a male femme fatale, a Him Fatale, if you will. Because here's the thing, Hollywood's got some weird assumptions about masculine and feminine roles, and to be honest, maybe we all do. So let's uncross Kevin Trammell's hairy legs and see how that makes us feel. I'm curious if we'll notice anything interesting besides a surprise hog. You're watching Gender Swap, I'm Allie, and this is Basic Himstinct. With some movies, it makes sense to go scene by scene, exploring how a gender swap might change the vibe. But the plot of Basic Instinct is just an endless carousel of sex scene, murder, car chase, Michael Douglas yelling at a woman, until the final scene is sexed. So let's just start by grabbing the most memorable Basic moment. That is, Sharon Stone's character's infamous spreading, wherein she sensually confuses a room of male detectives by briefly revealing she forgot her undies that morning. This is distinct from the 35 other scenes where she's also fully nude, but we can't see up inside her body. The male version of this is some skeezy dude whipping out a snake mid-interrogation in front of a couple female detectives, like Lyndon B. Johnson giving a press conference. The vibe changes from sensual misdirection to sexual harassment power move. Like, check out my swinging dong, clearly I'm in charge here.
It's nice.
Also, have you ever seen a movie with 5 female cops in the same shot, especially with no male cops around? And if you have, it probably stars Melissa McCarthy, and oh, look, she just fell on the floor, and she shit herself. But again, Sharon Stone's commando character is this classic femme fatale, like we often find in hard-boiled detective and/or film noir films. It's practically a genre prerequisite to include a handful of lusty ladies sporting both vaginas and legs that stretch for miles. The legs stretch for miles, not the... And in this, and every other noir, those sexy legs are almost always used to seduce good men into doing terrible things. But it's not like film noir birthed this archetype. Since we've been writing stories, female characters have largely been pigeonholed into one side of what's called the virgin whore complex, also known as the Madonna whore complex, or if most of your pop culture references come from the 90s, the Madonna complex. Hey! Basically, female characters are almost always either untouchable, sexless beauties, or sexually available, immoral homewreckers. And 1,000 years later, movies, which are like books but better, still mostly depict women who use their sexuality to achieve a certain outcome as essentially always evil, or at least incredibly conflicted. Their husky voice, red-lipped sex appeal is the entire source of their power. And, evidently, their naughtiness, because this isn't a two-way rain-soaked back alley. There's no male version of this complex. No incel Chad complex. In fact, attractive, flirtatious movie men with dicks that stretch for miles are basically always the hero. James Bond skillfully uses his little PP7 to turn villainous beauties the light side. Bond may later use his more literal PP7 to shoot those beautiful women into beautiful corpses, but they deserved it. Whereas men can use their rippling pecs and overwhelming chest hair for the good of humanity, overt female sexuality can only be used to destroy. Basic Instinct ends with Michael Douglas penetrating Sharon Stone so good that she decides not to murder him, or presumably anybody else. He literally heals her with his dick. This never happens in reverse. If a man gives in to a sensuous woman, the scene exists to demonstrate how far he's fallen. Sharon Stone's sexy voice causes Michael Douglas to backslide into drinking again and becoming an even worse cop, until eventually he's bailed out by the aforementioned penis redemption. Now, some of this naked bedtime power play stuff stems from the true history of sexpionage. As early as the 1920s, Russians were using ballerinas to have sexy spy sex with important marks in order to elicit valuable information alongside less valuable, juices. The Russians aren't the only ones with attractive ladies, known as sparrows, of course, and the past 100 years of spycraft have been absolutely moist with their field and bedwork. But there are several examples throughout history of men, called ravens, also sleeping with the enemy for information. It's basically a reverse Michael Jordan Mia Hamm Gatorade ad campaign, but sweatier. So again, why don't we see those hunks in noir movies? Well, for 2 reasons, and before you say anything, no, both reasons aren't testicles. The first seems to be an assumption that men can't help but have sex with anything that walks within 10 feet. And why is this in so many movies? It's so pessimistic about men. Our stalwart hero is tested with every trial known to man, and yet the one thing that brings him down is the puss? Is it because filmmakers assume it's the one thing every man thinks they'd actually fail at? Or that it'd be okay to fail at? Like, well, I don't know how I'd fare in a space laser battle with the fate of the world on the line, but if I see a solid 7 in a trench coat, I know I'm gonna fail so hard. Like, Even when a character is succumbing to the siren call of ultimate power, the way that we know he's gone too far is when he has some sex he probably shouldn't. It's like every writer is sitting in their office just saying, yeah, pussy do make you crazy. It's just such a depressing view to hold about men, right? Again, in Basic Instinct, Michael Douglas literally just rapes an ex-girlfriend as she walks in the door, and the movie kinda moves on from there. Like, sure, the movie suggests it's not a nice thing to do, but also what was the alternative? He's a boy. What self-control could he possibly muster in the face of a woman literally just standing there? But the second reason for a Femme Fatale-free world could be that a majority of those ravens actually slept with men. After all, men historically were more likely to hold positions of power and privilege, and this may shock some viewers, but some of them were maybe gay.
I bet you got him in here as a honey dick just in case I'm gay, but I'm not. But if I was, I would have seen him coming a mile away. You honey dicking?
Evidently, nobody wants to make that movie. Maybe because they assume we wouldn't want to watch it? Red Sparrow, which is literally about this whole historical concept, does show us a raven character who presumably will sleep with men as well as women for spy purposes, but the movie doesn't follow him. Follows Jennifer Lawrence, because that's the kind of lady sex the people want. Give the people what they want! Basic Instinct manages to include as many as 3 women that murder, or attempt to murder, because they're just too gay to function. Apparently audiences can handle a female switch hitter. There's no murder in baseball. But maybe asking for gay Femme Fatales is getting ahead of ourselves because, again, we don't have straight examples either. There's no mainstream movies where a sexy hunk seduces a woman into murdering his wife for him, or whatever. Partially, this is probably because, just like with the sadder or shittier parts of history, we don't really highlight powerful female protagonists in general, much less complicated heroines doomed to break bad. So, no good hero woman, no bad villain man, I guess. But okay, this might not be the most progressive take ever, but I think partially these roles continue to exist and actresses continue to flock to them because they actually kind of rule. The only other option is to play the sad housewife sitting at home as her husband succumbs to his vices. Who wouldn't prefer to play a sexy villainess? Although if we think about it this way, there is sort of a male analog in superhero movies. High-profile male actors keep flocking to the MCU not to play the next Captain McBeefsteaks, but as arch nemesis, Impossible Vegan Boy.
Todd's vegan.
Josh Brolin, Christian Bale, Willem Dafoe, and dozens of other heavyweight actors were apparently attracted to what promised to be a good, fun time, hamming it up as a supervillain, intent on destroying all life because of, reasons. Of course, the comparison only goes so far, since Thanos isn't sporting a Speedo in an effort to woo Captain America into bed before gaslighting him into murdering Nick Fury's other eye, or whatever. Well, except on certain dangerous parts of the internet. So okay, maybe instead of doing away with the femme fatale entirely, we should just try and also write other kinds of more nuanced female roles that break out of the virgin whore complex. Who wouldn't want Captain Marvel to bang Jude Law before blowing him up with hand lasers just because she can?
Prove to me you can me without.
And also, honestly, maybe we could get more nuanced male roles that show them having a little more control of their dicks. Sex and sexuality can and should exist in films without it automatically leading to male downfall or female redemption. Why not a little male redemption? Or a little female downfalling, huh? Or, even better, maybe occasionally characters can just get down because that's what real people do. I hear. I mean, I don't. I'm as pure as the driven snow. Made you look. Do you feel sensually misdirected? I don't know what you're talking about, officer. Maybe you can tell me what I'm talking about, officer. Do you feel sensually misdirected? Hey, newbie, come here. Listen, you and I are on duty tonight. We gotta go in there and we gotta interrogate that guy. I just want you to know, 2 lady cops, neither of us are Melissa McCarthy. That guy's gonna get his out. Hey, I'm Chad. Ironic, because I'm here to talk to you about the incel Chad complex. Now, this goes all the way back to medieval literature, where you would identify as the incel Merlin or the Chad King Arthur. This has permeated our culture and all of our media for as long as we've lived, but you don't know it because you're too busy trying to